The days after the Battle of Riverfall passed with quick rhythm. The sky above the colony had turned clean again. The air smelled of new metal from the towers being rebuilt and of smoke still rising from the burned fields. The people worked fast and with hope. They no longer looked lost or afraid. They now had a story to tell. A story of the ship Resolute that came when no one else did. Ethan Cole helped wherever he could, patched up damaged machines, spoke with the families who had lost their homes, and gave time to listen to each worker who came near him. He did not act like a commander or a leader from high above. He spoke as one of them. His voice was quiet and kind, but it carried power. People began to say that when Ethan said something, you wanted to believe it because he never wasted words. Mia often watched him when he worked. There was something in his calmness that reminded her of home, of the steady way her father used to fix old ships back on Earth. One evening she walked up to him while the sun of Riverfall set low, behind the metal towers. "You know," she said softly, "they talk about you now like you are some kind of legend." Ethan smiled faintly. "Legends belong to the past," he said. "We are building the future. But your name," Mia continued, "is already moving through all the colonies. Even the royal capital has heard of what we did here." Ethan looked at the sky for a long time. "Then let them hear," he said. "Let them see what unity looks like." Back in the capital, Queen Leora received daily updates from her network. She read about Riverfall, about the rebuilding, and about the trade routes that now carried the mark of the Earth Alliance. More and more outer colonies were joining Ethan's circle. They sent food, parts, and volunteers to support his crew. She knew that something had changed in humanity. It was not power as the royals defined it. It was something deeper respect born through action. Her son Rael came into the council room one night, restless again. He looked older now. Pride no longer sat in his eyes, but something like regret. "Mother," he said quietly, "I want to go to him. I want to see what he has built." The queen studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. "Go. But do not go as a prince. Go as a man who wishes to learn." A few weeks later, a royal shuttle descended onto Riverfall. The colony workers stopped what they were doing and pointed at the sky. Ethan watched the ship land with quiet curiosity, did not expect any royal visit. When the ramp opened, Prince Rael stepped out alone. His royal clothes were simple this time, without the glittering stones and heavy metal pins. He looked around until his eyes found Ethan among the crowd. For a long moment, neither spoke. The last time they had seen each other had been in the great hall where pride had ruled the day. Now they stood on a dusty field that smelled of ash and new wiring, the air still warm from hard work. Rael walked forward slowly. When he reached Ethan, he stopped and looked him in the eye. "I came here to see what you have done," he said quietly, "and I see it now. You built something no crown could ever command." Ethan did not answer right away. He studied the young man's face and saw honesty in it. "We only repaired what others forgot," he said. "But if you see value in that, then maybe change has already begun." Rael took a deep breath. "I came here also to apologize," he said. "For the words I spoke, for the way I judged you. I thought silence meant weakness. I was wrong. I have seen your silence turn into strength." The people standing nearby heard his words and watched with astonishment. A prince, humbling himself before a man from Earth, was something no one had imagined could happen. Ethan gave a small nod and reached out his hand. The prince took it firmly. For the first time, there was no wall between them. No title, no pride, just two men of the same kind. That moment was seen by the workers, the mechanics, and the crew of the Resolute. The image spread across the network, became a symbol of a new beginning. Soon after, Queen Leora herself announced a joint council that would unite the Earth Alliance and the royal colonies. Weeks later, in that same grand hall where Ethan had once been insulted, he now stood again, but this time beside the queen and her son. The crowd was different. There was respect in the air now, not arrogance. The queen spoke first, her voice clear. "There was once a day when this hall witnessed pride and insult," she said, "but today it witnesses humility and unity. Let this remind us all that respect is earned, not given by birth." When she finished, she turned to Ethan. He stepped forward, looked at the people, and spoke with calm strength. "Humanity is one. We come from different worlds, But we share the same sky? No. Unity is not a dream. It is a duty. His voice filled the hall without needing to rise in volume. Every person listened. When he finished, a soft peace settled over the room. Outside, the sky glowed with the light of ships carrying goods and hope between worlds. That night, as the stars rose above the palace towers, Ethan stood on a balcony beside Mia. The breeze was gentle, carrying the faint hum of distant engines. She looked at him and said, "You see, you did not just walk away that day. You walked toward this." Ethan smiled slightly. "Sometimes a quiet step forward changes more than 1,000 loud speeches," he said. And as the night spread across the universe, the legacy of one man. Silence turned into a story that would travel forever among the stars, a story not of anger, but of dignity, courage, and unity that no insult could ever break. He told himself it was nothing. It was only one dinner, yet deep inside he knew something small had started to grow. She drew for long hours with music playing from the radio. But every now and then, her thoughts went back to the tall man who listened so carefully and laughed softly when she teased him about being too serious. She did not expect to see him again, not because she did not want to, but because she believed people like him belonged to another world. Ethan stood beside them, unsure if he should leave or stay. By the end, Lily created a small picture of a bird flying beside his son and showed it proudly to Ethan. Claire said the bird looked brave. Lily whispered that it looked like her dad. Ethan felt his throat tighten but smiled anyway. The three of them sat by the lake, and Lily talked about everything she loved, from cartoons to her dream of becoming a pilot. Claire listened, her eyes calm and warm. She said that second chances do not come easy, but sometimes they find you when you stop searching. That simple line settled somewhere deep inside him. From that day, Claire began seeing the small changes in Ethan. He smiled more and seemed less guarded. At night, she often thought about the way he looked at his daughter, how that love shaped everything he did. Ethan, on the other hand, felt the invisible connection growing stronger with every meeting. It was not about attraction alone. It was about peace, understanding, and the quiet sense that this woman could see parts of him that even he had forgotten. On one evening walk to his car, Claire's hand brushed against his. Touch was brief, yet it stayed with both of them long after. Neither spoke of it, but they both felt the same silent pull, something gentle and real. Ethan began to believe that life was turning gentle again. His days felt lighter because of Claire. He saw her almost every week, sometimes with Lily and sometimes alone. When he sat in her small studio, he forgot that he was a man who carried the weight of a company. He felt like a man who could laugh about spilled paint and crooked drawings. Claire had that gift. She brought color into plain moments and calm into heavy ones. Lily adored her. She talked about Claire every night, saying how she was going to teach her to draw better circles and how she smelled like vanilla and pencils. Ethan liked that Lily was happy, but he liked more that he was learning to feel alive again. Claire never asked too many questions and never tried to change him. She only looked at him as if she saw someone kind behind all his walls. But peaceful things do not stay untouched for long. Ethan's company was growing fast, and success attracted trouble. One morning, the board of directors held a meeting to discuss a new project. Among them was Victor Hale, a man who disliked Ethan's ways. Victor smiled politely in meetings, yet whispered behind closed doors. He had seen Ethan with Claire once at a park and asked around until he learned she was an illustrator trying to build her name. That gave him an idea, a cruel one. That week, a small gossip article appeared online saying the famous CEO Ethan Cole was secretly dating an unknown artist to gain sympathy in the public eye. It claimed she was using him to promote her work and that he was letting her for the sake of his image. The story spread quickly because people liked lies that sounded almost true. When Claire read it, her hand shook. Her phone rang again and again with messages from acquaintances asking if it was true. Pain filled her chest because the words cut deep. She never wanted attention, only honesty. She wondered if Ethan had known. A part of her wanted to believe he would never let such a story happen. Another part feared he had found it useful for his public reputation. She did not answer his calls that night. When he came to her studio the next day, she was packing her art supplies in quiet anger. Ethan tried to explain, saying he had just heard about it that morning and was already handling it with his lawyer. Claire looked at him with tired eyes. She was not angry at the rumor, but at the world that could twist something gentle into a show. "Ethan, I do not want to be part of your company's story," she said. "You live in a place where truth gets buried under money. I cannot breathe there." He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that with her he was just a man, not a headline. But the words did not come fast enough. She turned away, keeping her voice steady, though her heart was breaking. "Maybe it is better if we stop before this hurts more." After she left, Ethan stood in the studio, surrounded by blank canvases and pieces of paper that smelled like her hand. He felt helpless and furious at himself for not protecting her from the storm he brought into her life. Days turned into a quiet ache. He worked harder than ever, but felt no pride in it. At home, Lily asked when she could see Claire again. Ethan said soon, forcing a smile he did not feel. He told himself he would fix it, that the truth would come out. But truth needs more than proof. It needs courage. One night he opened his late wife's old journal, something he had not done in years. In it was a line she once wrote, "Love is not safe. It asks you to be seen." Reading that made Ethan realize what he had done wrong. He had built a life that looked successful, but protected him from being seen. Claire had dared to look closer, and instead of holding that gift, he let fear build another wall. While he was fighting his silence, Claire was sitting by her apartment window, watching the city lights through the rain. She missed Lily's laughter and the calm that Ethan's presence brought. But she reminded herself that trust should never be begged for. She focused on her art again, painting long into the night to keep from thinking about him. Weeks passed, yet the string between them did not break. It stayed stretched and faint, but still alive. Each time Ethan passed the park where they had drawn together, he remembered her voice. Each time Claire walked by a cafe window reflecting a man in a suit, she felt her heart twist softly. They were both waiting for something, though neither knew how to reach across the space that words and mistakes had built. Ethan knew he could not let that space win. Somewhere in his mind, a small, steady thought told him that if a soul string had joined them once, it could pull them back again if he was brave enough to follow it. Weeks passed before Ethan saw Claire again. The city kept on moving, but for him, each day felt longer than the one before. He spent most evenings staring at the window after putting Lily to bed, wondering if Claire was painting or if she had forgotten him. He read the same books, signed papers, went to meetings, and smiled when required, but none of it felt real. At times, he caught himself listening for her laugh and felt foolish for missing someone who did not want to see him. Claire tried to bury herself in work. Her small apartment was filled with new canvases and drawings. She told herself she was fine, that she only needed her art and peace, yet peace never stayed long. Sometimes Lily's smiling face would appear in her mind, holding a crayon and asking about colors. Other times she would remember the way Ethan looked at his daughter as if she were his whole world. Those memories warmed her heart for a moment and then hurt again. She wanted to believe he had told her the truth, but fear is heavy when it has already been betrayed once before. One morning, Claire received a message from the school where Lily studied. It was an invitation to an art fair where parents and students could show their creations. She almost deleted it before realizing her own name was listed as a guest artist because Lily had written it down. The little girl had remembered her promise to visit. Claire stared at the screen for a long time, then placed her phone aside. She told herself she would not go, but the idea stayed quietly in her mind until it became impossible to ignore. On the day of the fair, the gym was full of paintings, colored paper, and proud parents. Children laughed and ran with bright ribbons on their wrists. Claire arrived late and planned to stay only for a few minutes. When she walked through the entrance, several children recognized her from the park lessons and waved. She smiled politely, feeling both welcome and nervous. At the center of the room hung a painting that stopped her steps. It was made by Lily, entitled "The Family That Waits." The picture showed 3 figures holding hands under a warm yellow sky. It was simple, but the meaning was clear. Claire felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at it. Ethan appeared beside her a moment later, holding Lily's backpack. His face showed surprise and relief when he saw her. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Around them, parents clapped and children laughed, but it all sounded distant. Lily ran over and hugged Claire tightly. She said, "You came. I told Dad you would." Claire stroked her hair and smiled through tears she tried to hide. Ethan watched and took a slow breath before speaking. "Claire, I am sorry," he said. "I let lies build between us. I was afraid again, the same way I was after my wife died. I thought keeping quiet would protect you, but it only pushed you away. I should have fought harder for the truth." Claire lowered her eyes. "People will always talk, Ethan. They will find something to twist. I just could not stand watching your world turn me into a story." He nodded and said quietly, "Then let me tell you my story myself." He began to speak louder, not caring that others had turned to listen. He told everyone present that the rumors were false, that Claire had never used him for fame, that she had brought joy to his daughter and reminded him how to live again. His voice shook, but did not break. The room became silent. Claire watched him, unsure if she was hearing a confession or something even deeper. When he stopped talking, Lily pulled his arm and said in her sweet voice, "Now everyone knows the truth, Dad." Ethan smiled at his daughter, then looked back at Claire. "I do not care about the rest," he said. "I only care that you know I never doubted you." For a moment she did not move. Then she stepped closer. "You are brave now," she whispered. "I did not know if you could be." He gave a small smile that looked tired but real. "I am trying to be, because you were brave first." They stood there as children continued to play and parents went back to chatting. The noise of the room returned, but everything between them felt still. Lily took both their hands and placed them together, happy and unaware of how much it meant. The sky was heavy with clouds, but the light underneath was golden. As he watched her walk away, He felt something he had not felt in years, a steady calm that came from truth. Claire looked back once before turning the corner. This time she did not feel frightened. She knew the bond between them had not ended. Months passed after the school art fair. Life began to bloom quietly again. The storm around the rumor had faded, replaced by new stories and new headlines that no longer mattered. Ethan still worked hard, but his days no longer felt sharp or lonely. He began to smile in small moments, the kind that come without planning. He often found drawings on his desk made by Lily, always showing three figures together under a wide, bright sky. Claire had grown busier with her art. Her paintings began to appear in small galleries. Not because of publicity, but because people were drawn to the feeling in her work. Each brushstroke carried warmth and hope, the kind she had almost forgotten during the darker months. Sometimes she would pause mid-painting and think of Ethan and Lily, missing their laughter, but also feeling thankful that they were well. She told herself that peace was enough, yet her heart still wondered what it would be like if they met again. One warm evening, Lily was invited to show her artwork at a public exhibition for children. She begged her father to let Claire see it, saying that her painting would not feel complete without the person who taught her to love colors. Ethan agreed, though he did not know if Claire would come. He sent her a simple message saying he hoped she would attend. He waited several days for an answer, but none came. He prepared himself for disappointment and focused on helping Lily set up her work. The day of the exhibition came, filled with cheerful noise and the smell of paper and fresh paint. The event was held on the pier near the lake, a place filled with soft waves and floating lights. As the sun set, its glow touched everything with gold. Ethan stood beside Lily, proud and calm, though his eyes kept drifting toward the crowd. Claire arrived just before sunset. She walked slowly between the stalls, taking in the laughter, the paintings, and the smell of cotton candy in the air. When she saw Ethan and Lily, her heart gave a small jump. Lily spotted her first and ran straight into her arms with a cry of joy. Ethan turned and his eyes softened, the way they once had in the restaurant on their first meeting. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice quiet but full. "I could not stay away," Claire replied. They spent the evening together watching children show their art and listening to music. When Lily won a small prize for her painting of 3 birds flying together, she insisted that both Ethan and Claire hold her hands on stage. The crowd clapped, and for one shining moment, Ethan felt the heavy years behind him fade. As night settled, lanterns floated on the lake, each carrying children's drawings inside plastic covers. The light from them danced across the water like tiny stars. Ethan and Claire stood by the edge watching Lily chase her friends nearby. "It feels strange that everything started with a blind date," Claire said with a soft smile. Ethan nodded. "The best things often start by accident," he said. "I used to think meeting you was a coincidence, but now I believe it was more than that." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "You reminded me that love is not about replacing someone. It is about learning how to open your heart again." Claire looked at him and saw that he was not the man she first met. The worry around his eyes had lessened, replaced by a quiet strength. "I was terrified too," she said. "I told myself I would never trust anyone again, yet here I am." They shared a simple silence, the kind that held peace rather than distance. Lily came running back toward them, her hair shining in the lantern light. She took their hands again and said, "Look, sky is smiling." They all looked up to see the clouds part, showing a blanket of stars. Ethan turned to Claire and spoke in a voice more tender than she had ever heard from him. "Don't leave," he said. "You are the only one who arrived." Claire's eyes filled with quiet tears, but this time they were tears of relief. She stepped closer and let herself rest against him, feeling his hand trace hers like a promise. Around them, the music from the fair played softly, and Lily began to hum along, happy and free. They stayed until most of the lights dimmed, and only the soft ripples of the lake remained. The breeze carried the scent of rain in early spring. Ethan held Claire's hand as they watched their reflections in the water alongside Lily's.
Oh.
All three joined together as one image. That night marked no grand announcement or dramatic ending. It was simple and real, the kind of ending that felt like a beginning. The single dad who once lived behind walls, the artist who feared to trust, and the little girl who believed in color had found one another again. Their world was quiet, but full, and for the first time in a very long time. 3 hearts finally felt like they had arrived home.